You can do it.
Roll call, please.
Larson,
Here.
Fratelli,
Here.
Eaton. Here. Lyman,
Here.
Ronnie. Here. Westwood,
Here.
Whistler. Here.
Cancel December 28th council meeting. Dave.
Move to cancel the December 28th work session as has been done previously in the holiday season.
Second.
We have just traditionally canceled the last meeting of the year because that's when people visit family, take vacations. I myself will not even be in the country on the 28th. So the reality, you know what? Maybe I think we should meet the 28th. No, so it's something we've done traditionally. It just has to be done formally. No. I don't need your permission. You need our permission. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
Well, thank you, Dave. Any other discussion on that?
Is this the investment grade audit?
No, that's at the end. Any discussion from the public? Everybody's good with it? Let's do a roll call vote.
Fratelli,
Yes.
Eaton.
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Ronnie. Yes. Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler. Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 956, Urban Renewal District. We'll open it up for a public hearing.
I had a little conversation with the city attorney, and after careful review, I will be abstaining
Okay,
because of my family's business in that area.
totally understand. Thank you.
Thanks, Danica.
If anybody in the public wants to speak on this, please step up to the podium, give us your name, whether you reside in the city or outside the city. If you're online, after we have public comments in the gallery here, we'll go to the people online and go through those. So for the public hearing, any public comments? Yes, Tim.
Tim Weimer, I reside at Remington Ranch. I'm wholly in favor of this. I've gone through a lot of work. I shouldn't say work, but a lot of question reading, discovery, talking within the community, talking not only with residents, but also people that work in emergency services, and the impact that this can have favorably for them as a person who has lived in the Red Lodge community for 30 years and is planning on going nowhere. I'm very much looking forward to seeing or having the opportunity to dress up the entrance, the most used entrance to our town. I think that this is the best way to do it. It's also the best way for us to get workforce housing as well as affordable housing. And I wholly support it and hope that the city council does as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
My name's Marshall Bisher, born and raised here in Red Lodge. I actually reside down the road in Roberts, part owner and a business on the north end of town. I'm completely against this idea. I think the city's throwing around some terms that are very concerning to a lot of people that own property on the north end of town. One of them being this urban renewal district. Urban renewal is kind of a term that's been used in the past for seizing property and forcing redevelopment in areas deemed blighted, which has been used for like eminent domain for seizures of properties. And I'm kind of curious what the real intentions are, because the devil's in the details on this one. So I'm here to learn a little more about what you guys have come up with. I'm not completely aware of all the funding behind this project, but I guess I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about it. But any government-run programs I've seen that come out of programs like this, even for major cities under 50,000 people, there's a lot of failure stories out there that you can see and look at. So I'm kind of thinking this has been spun up to the federal government as some kind of an idea that our city is in disrepair or needs urban renewal, when most of the businesses on the north end of town are no older than 30 years. The only one I can think of that would even you know, be considered old would be the pea cannery from the 1900s. Otherwise, everything else is fairly new, so that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. Public comment.
Dave Fisher, I think you can hear me, I don't need to be at the podium. I've got one question. How do we kill this thing?
This is a comment period, but I will answer that for you. It's up for action at the council for the first reading, so it's up to council.
It's actually second reading.
What's that?
It is actually second reading.
Second reading, sorry.
Negative,
No.
it is the first reading.
We didn't vote. Sorry.
All we had was a discussion last time, we did not vote.
Okay.
And it is properly noticed on the agenda, just for reference.
Any other public comment? Public comment? Public comment? Anyone online? We'll close the public meeting. We'll bring it to the table. Teresa?
I have some questions about, the ordinance versus the URD, the document itself as an exhibit. Section 253 on page 6.
Do you want to bring
I'm sorry.
it up for a motion
Oh, yeah,
first, and then we can
right,
discuss
so-
it?
motion to approve. An ordinance, the city council, Red Lodge, Montana, establishing the North Community Urban Entrance Urban Renewal Area, creating the North Community Entrance Urban Renewal District, and adopting the North Community Entrance Urban Renewal District Plan with a tax increment financing provision pursuant to Title 7, Chapter 15, Parts 42 and 43 of the Montana Code. First reading.
Second.
Okay. Discussion at the table. Teresa?
And now, sorry, I have a question on, because there's this, disparity between, section 253 in the ordinance itself, the draft on page 6, and the, URD has an exhibit, stating that, this is about members' appointment and terms, at least 5 and not more than 7 members with the initial terms as follows. The URD exhibit says that it would be 5, and I'd like to say that it mirrors the same statement, that it's 5 to 7.
Got that, James?
Yes.
Okay. Teresa?
And then I think there were some questions about the projects that would be discussed among such a board as a URD board versus what projects are eligible. I heard mention of the CIP, but I think that if it's something that's stated within the URD, it would be eligible. Can we get some clarification on that?
I don't, what do you mean specifically, like, as
Does
far
it
as?
have to be within the CIP and or within the URD document itself? I mean, there would be proposals that step up apart from what's in the CIP today. So, can you clarify around, what proposals would be eligible and the process? So it reads that they would come to the board first, there would be some recommendations, prioritizations, and then brought to city council for approval. I just want to make sure I understand that.
Yeah, I think the main thing with that is to consider the chapter 4 in the urban renewal plan, which goal number 3, public infrastructure improvements. So the vision and goals of the urban renewal district highlight priorities. We worked at that on the planning board level, and issues that are pointed out there are stormwater drainage and pipe capacity, which is likely going to be taken care of before there's ever urban renewal money. However, we thought we'd add it in there just in case, and then complete streets as well as chip sealants, chips, seals, and sealants for streets, and then identifying some failing streets such as Second or the end of Bonner where there's street ends or it becomes gravel, being able to do those specific projects. So I believe that the document should be followed. It can be changed in following years if it's a successful district. We get some projects for workforce housing and there's money being created in that district. Maybe priorities change 5, 7, 8, 9 years down the road. And there's different types of projects in the CIP that are outlined in that.
Fit together, sort of dovetail. That's what I was trying to figure out, is what flexibility is there and eligibility, so that whatever, just the opportunity to make the most sense of it, get the most for our money is possible. That's what I'm just trying to understand. So it doesn't have to be, if it's related to complete streets and it's not related to a stormwater project, but say there's a push to complete Second Street, for instance, that's something that could be proposed and possibly recommended to council for approval,
Correct.
just as a for instance.
Dave?
James, I have a question with a comment you just made. You said it can be changed. So I'm aware that the ordinance can be changed by passing another ordinance. So are you talking about, when you said it can be changed, are you talking about the urban renewal plan can be changed beyond what it currently is?
Yeah, the urban renewal plan can be updated every several years. Let's say, for example, we get several workforce housing projects in the district. And in an ideal situation, maybe 5, 6, 7 years from now, workforce housing, which is goal number 1, in support of mixed-use buildings, goal number 2, the goal 1A and 1B is a better way to describe it. We've had a lot of success with that, and we don't necessarily need to prioritize that anymore. At that point in time, it would be best for the urban renewal agency to review the goals and objectives and update them. See, we've already accomplished certain things. Let's review things we can do in the district that we think would benefit the area.
Okay. Follow-up question. You used in your example, let's suppose that the workforce housing part of this is highly successful and we no longer have a need for workforce housing. One of my concerns with this project has been, and I've had the opportunity of being party to several different conversations in several different audiences, and one of my concerns / frustrations is a little bit of the difference in the presentation depending on the audience. And I don't mean that as an indictment, it's just an observation. But if I look at the boundaries of that workforce, of that urban renewal district, I really only see 3 parcels of land that I identify as potentially being able to be used for high density housing, the type that would accommodate what I think is most missing from our workforce market. Can you expand, do you see more than that, or where within this do you see that workforce housing can be fit into this boundaries?
Well, some of the lots, particularly north of the tap room, right up against the golf course, is a very large property.
That's one of them that I've identified.
That property alone could house 100 units potentially. I don't think, I'll give you another example. I don't know whether or not they'll move, but I know of one business in that district that might move that doesn't have any permanent structures there, as an example. So there could be other things that open up as well. But a couple of the lots, particularly the one next to the golf course, is large enough that that lot alone could change the our capacity and workforce housing shortage.
Pete? Get my timer here.
This document fits the narrative of community enhancements, as proponents suggest urban blight morphing into trendy residential and commercial streets, all in the name of public purpose. But what has been conveniently left out of this conversation is the collateral damage, gentrification caused by programs such as these. Gentrification is where the current residents of the targeted blight area, by condemnation from a non-invested entity, lose their capital equity, which is proximity to essential shopping, medical care, and their workplaces. Let's take a hypothetical glimpse at the human toll this project could have right here. A person who works 2 jobs, a person who applied for and received a mortgage on a home they bought at market value. Then along comes the city of Red Lodge, this program, and its non-vested administrators, who label the person's neighborhood as blight, unsightly, not harmonious. So they condemn it, take it, bulldoze it. Then this person, as well as this person's neighbors, end up 20 miles out of Red Lodge, where they cannot walk to work, walk to medical care, and walk to essential shopping. And 2 years later, who gets this land? A person who only got it at the expense of the original owner's displacement. What government fails to understand or purposely ignores is that this area will heal itself through free market enterprise. This past year, several small Colorado towns that have adopted similar plans 4 or 5 years ago have recently passed legislation to curb the intrusive actions of their plan and those running it. To quote one Colorado city council person, residents are being displaced for the sake of park benches and flower gardens. And least we not mention the possible economic impact. The Steamboat Pilot newspaper, Steamboat Springs, reported last month, October 2021, that the Steamboat School Board estimates the loss or shortfall this year as a result of their urban plan's mill implication will be $57,000. A Routt County finance spokesperson, where Steamboat is located, stated the county's separate loss from their plan this year will be $874,000. So we'll eventually be stressing and displacing human beings and possibly affecting our economic base. All the narrative in the world, all the Tony chatter of public purpose and community enhancement will not gloss over what this project is. And this project is wrong.
Thank you, Pete. Teresa.
I'd like to discuss section 9 on page 5 of the ordinance itself. The extent of power states clearly that neither the city nor any of its subdivisions shall use eminent domain to take private property for economic development. And I believe we did discuss this in our resolution that the city, the current city council, and hopefully future city council members would have no reason or favor or interest, hopefully no appetite for any such action as eminent domain. We've tried things in the past that haven't worked, and possibly we need to start trusting our own city and city council in the direction we're planning to take together, and that eminent domain will not be a tool that we're going to use.
Dave.
I just want to piggyback on that. And by the way, none of my comments should be taken in an isolated context. In our public meeting that we had earlier, and then in follow-up conversations that I've had with the school and the county, I've made a very concerted effort to make sure that what we're doing is accurately understanding and the information we have is authentic. And it does say in our ordinance that it shall specifically not use eminent domain. However, it has been alternately represented as we can't change that and we can. I want to just make it clear that my understanding is, even though we may pass an ordinance now that says no eminent domain, technically it could be modified in the future to do so. Having said that, I also think that never is eminent domain particularly likely. I don't think this council, I think US citizens in general are not fond of the idea. And I would think that if anything, this is probably less likely to happen within this area. I'm not going to say it's an impossibility, but I think it would be actually less likely, because now not is only somebody bucking the underlying sentiment of eminent domain is bad, but they would do so in open disregard to what the previous council directed their intent was at the time they do it. So I just want to offer that as a second, that I think you're correct. I don't think this will be used for eminent domain.
Any other discussion at the table? Dave?
I do have some other points. One of them I'll follow up with on James. At a previous meeting, you had made a statement that I understood to say that no project that received funds from the TIF district could be used for short-term rentals. And I had asked where that language was. I anticipated maybe I would see that in the ordinance itself, but I did not. I'm wondering if you can offer any additional information or assurances. Is that MCA that guides that? Is it?
It's our zoning, it's, our short-term rental, language in our zoning ordinance. But I kind of did think about that at one point in time, that I should have pointed that out in the urban renewal plan, and did not do so.
So what is, I'm as a member of the planning board, can you remind me or just refresh what that says? Does it basically say anything receiving any sort of government funding?
Yeah, correct. I can't remember if it says government or city, but.
Right. If there's others with questions, I'm happy to defer to a moment, but Mayor, I do have two more comments I'd like to make before then. Okay. So I mentioned that when we had the public comment, I actually ended up kind of pre-answering a dozen of the questions that I had heard from people that had reached out. Eminent domain being one of them, taxes going up, and my concern was not in pushing this forward or stopping it in its tracks. My concern was doing everything I could to make sure that we had the best information to make that decision. In fact, I feel it's going to be really interesting / frustrating I spent a huge amount of effort trying to make this be the absolute best possible tip we could put forward. But I still have two concerns that I feel need to be addressed before I'm on board. And one of them just got made a little bit bigger when we talked about the changing of the URP. The first one I think is not significant, and that is one of my big concerns, and I shared this information with James, and then Pete and I had the opportunity to go meet with the school board. I had several people on the school board reach out to me, and it was interesting because as they expressed what their concerns were, I was able to assuage those concerns and let them know those weren't particularly concerns. Again, that doesn't mean it's good, move forward, but for instance, one of their concerns was, does this prevent them from declaring a mill levy that would include that urban district in the future if they needed to? My understanding, which I didn't put down as solid, but I understand that they've since followed up in, is that no, that would not prevent them to do that. And we, in talking with them, they invited the city, and James was able to make it to the school board meeting. And my understanding of that meeting, I was not present, but I've had several follow-up conversations with school board members, was that the financial concerns, my comment to James was, one of the benefits of an urban renewal district, specifically now before the time frame hits, is that not only are we capping and taking the money that the city would normally be getting, so we'd still be getting that money anyway, but we also get the school district share, and we also get the county share. To me, in order for us to do that, we needed, if not strong support, at least okay or indifference before I was going to vote for it. I wasn't going to feel comfortable voting for it if the school board was saying, no, you're stealing our money. Nor was I comfortable with the idea, why are they complaining, we're only stealing a little bit? That didn't seem like a very good answer. So my follow-up with the school board was that they understood the purpose of a TIF, and they were actually okay with the city establishing this TIF, but there was a comma and a small asterisk there, and that was that their understanding of the money was going to be used for specifically the workforce housing issue, which in fairness is what gets my attention, and also infrastructure. With those conversations with the school board, not quite as enthusiastic conversations from the county. I don't see county here, kind of a neutral position. The things that I feel need to be here, one, in the ordinance itself where we discuss the 5 to 7 members, I would like to see it specifically articulated that there needs to be at least one of those members that needs to be a representative of the school board, and there needs to be one of those members who is representative of the county. And before we get to the point where we're making motions and actions, I just wanted to get a feel, Mayor, I don't know if we do a straw poll or what, I want to get a feel if anybody had any objection to either of those requirements.
Straw poll, no. If you want to try to amend the ordinance in that direction, then we can vote on that.
I'm comfortable with that. Thank you, Mayor. The second concern that I have has to do with the urban renewal district, and specifically on page 26 and 27, where it goes to defining the criteria of what this money is going to be used for. And this kind of goes back to, I've heard differing conversations depending on what the audience is. My feeling and what I understood the school board to be saying was, if this is going to be used for housing, we're okay with it. If this is, meaning workforce housing, if this is going to help fix our workforce housing issue. If it's going to be used for public infrastructure that benefits the community as a whole, we're okay with it. But when I reviewed the longer list and some of the generic concerns, the things that this could be used for is a little bit wide. And so one of the things I would like to do is I'd like to see that list narrowed down to those significant things. But now my concern is, how easily is that turned in the future?
James?
Well, are there things in state law that you can spend money on that you don't like, or are you talking about the vision and goals?
So the project evaluation criteria, and I will give you an example. One of the projects that has come up multiple times is the pea cannery. And so as different folks have reached out to me, I think there is a case that can be made that we would indeed collect more property taxes on the pea cannery if it were rehabilitated and were an improved building as opposed to a building that's in the state it's currently in. However, the general consensus from my constituency and talking to the school board was, yeah, that doesn't meet the threshold whereby we want to put this mechanism in place. When you talk to me about workforce housing, I can say, that benefits the whole of Red Lodge. But if you're going to talk about, let's put in a sprinkling system, I believe is the example down there, so that private developer X can help rehabilitate that building, I can see where that's an advantage to private developer X. But does that benefit the community as a whole, or enough of the community to justify this cumbersome mechanism that we're putting in place?
Well, I mean, I'll point out a couple things. One, it's been listed as a goal, and I know at least John Fitzgerald read the plan. I don't know about most of the school boards. To promote historic preservation has been in the goals and objectives pretty much since the get-go. And I think, In terms of not specifically mentioning a case like that, that's really the only building in the district that could potentially, I think, use significant historic preservation. So, you know, in my view, it would be a very small expenditure in the grand scale of things, which is part of the reason why it's goal number 4. I do feel that just as a planner for the last 15 years and seeing a lot of redevelopment of buildings like that, I've yet to hear of one that came in under budget and under timeline, and they're very expensive, and that building's been vacant for 40 years. I do believe it's a community benefit to get that entire building up and running again. But, you know, I guess I'll say from my perspective, historic preservation and the Peak Cannery in particular is one small project within the urban renewal plan. It's not a major goal. Maybe it gets funded, maybe it doesn't. But I do think it would benefit the community. And it's just one small project that could occur within urban renewal district.
Teresa?
I'm just gonna take a little step back and throw in my 2 cents to that. If you narrow what projects are eligible or try to tailor that, you have no crystal ball that's gonna tell you what's gonna come along. If you try to tailor it, narrow it, you might be losing out on a number of other projects that could have taken off. And as far as the, you know, it's people see activity and they join in. If you squash that, you could be squashing the success of the project on the whole. If you get no other offers but the Peak Cannery, a proposed project that's ready to go, that could be an anchor and do the same thing for that whole area. It could attract other developers to the area to see that things are happening. It's a good place to be. I don't think you want to limit what is eligible or within the scope of the urban renewal district.
Thank you, Mayor. That addresses my points.
Good.
Questions?
Any other discussion at the table? We've had the public hearing, we've heard from the public, so.
Mayor, there was a hand raised down here. My head may have been in the way.
Oh, it's all right. I'm okay. Thank you.
And if I may add one more thing to that conversation, the Urban Renewal Agency and the Planning Board might say, you know, we don't want to fund anything interior at the Peak Cannery unless it's going to at least partially be used for housing. That could be a decision the city council makes.
And I do recognize that the city council will approve every project that is put forth. It ultimately has to be approved on a project-by-project basis.
Any other discussion at the table? Roll call.
Greg Kelly?
Pardon me, can someone repeat the motion? Please?
Approving the ordinance.
Approving the ordinance 956.
No.
Dean? Yes. Lyman?
I'm going to abstain.
Reason for abstention?
I think it needs more discussion.
I don't know that that's a good reason for abstaining. Normally, it's just an
Yeah,
ethical thing.
I think normally, yeah, abstaining is a conflict, and so
Well,
if you
right.
need no
Whatever, I'm
discussion,
not-
you can do a no.
All right, no.
Ronnie? Hank? Westwood?
No.
Whistler?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I want on the record that I'm voting no under duress because I've stated my reason why.
Okay.
This needs more discussion.
What was our tally?
2 yeses, 3 noes, and abstained.
And it requires 4 yeses to pass. No. Thanks. You're welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. That's done. Let's move on to resolution 3589. City support of the airport, and Dave.
Mr. Mayor, I would like just to pre-declare that Based on conversations that were offered at the last meeting regarding conflict of interest, the fact that I am a pilot, I do in fact own a hangar in another city, so it's certainly plausible that I may in fact someday be desirous of owning a hangar at the Red Lodge Airport. I will be abstaining from discussion and action on this item.
Okay. We'll take a motion, please.
I move to approve. Resolution 3589, lease support of airport.
Second that?
Discussion at the table.
Yeah, so she can do the reading for proper.
I move to approve resolution number 3589, a resolution of the City Council of Red Lodge, Montana, recognizing the value and stating its continued support for the Red Lodge Airport.
And I second.
You're still seconding that?
Yes.
Okay, discussion at the table. Teresa?
I'm wondering why this is, action on tonight. What's the, purpose for the expediency?
The airport board is trying to get, FAA approval, and so that's why we have it on there. We did, Dennison and I met with, the airport board, and this is what we hammered out, and, this is what we're going forward.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Pete.
I was contacted by the parties involved. They requested that we remove the fifth whereas. And after a long discussion with their representative, I'm still unclear why they would like it removed. I'm not asking for a public comment, but I'm asking for perhaps some clarification to me from this council why it might be in anyone's best interest to remove the fifth whereas. And if it is, I will go along with the majority of the council. It seems to be in a quandary here in terms of Robert's Rules of Order, but I wanted to bring it up that they did request it be removed, which would take an amendment, but I still don't understand the logistics of why they want it removed. Maybe someone here can explain it to me.
Joey?
My understanding is that, that is basically saying that we're not financially responsible for the airport. Is that correct? And my understanding is that in order for the city to become financially responsible for the airport, it would have to be voted on by city council. Could we maybe get Dennison's input on how that works?
Sure.
Clarification there, so I'm not stating something that's completely inaccurate.
Mayor, members of the city council, and you always can say something inaccurate, no worries.
Okay, you're good with it?
We try not to.
I know.
You know,
I know.
space-saving thing.
The fifth paragraph, it sounds like to me, the reason why the airport board would like it removed was that when they present this resolution for trying to receive funding from certain entities such as the FFA, they don't want that to add in, to make it look like the city of Red Lodge has kind of a conflict, like we are going to support them, but to not the full extent. From my perspective, it looks like, and I don't want to speak for anybody, they're here and they can speak for themselves, but it sounds like they wanted to present the best foot forward in their application to the FAA. However, from my perspective, and from my perspective from the legal side of things, I don't have too much of a legal heartburn if it's in here or if it's not in here. The reason for that is it sounds like there's a subsequent language, I think offered by Teresa as a proposal to put some language in the actual therefore later on that would also cover some of the same concerns the city council might have. And so whether the language is in the therefore, the whereas, or up front in the whereas, from the legal department, it makes no difference one way or the other. It's just wording wise. That makes sense. Thank you.
Teresa?
I did talk to Steve Smith about the wording and the removal of that whereas clause. it's, right now, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth whereas down on the resolution. And that it would have been, stated otherwise that the council, and, you know, in a therefore, for instance, the next therefore, the council reaffirms its commitment to the airport, supports the efforts of the airport board in researching and pursuing funding sources independently of the city, including funding for grants, and private donations. So that is a gentler statement that still gives the understanding that the city supports and that it understands and recognizes that the airport board is going to seek independently its own funding, which the city would not be responsible for. I mean, the city would not be named on the grant application or any funding applications. So it doesn't really need to be in here at all. And if it's detrimental to, you know, the parties that the airport board is seeking funding from, why would we put it in if we're supporting the airport?
Okay. Any other comments from the table? Tom?
I'm very supportive of the airport. I think the city needs to do whatever it takes to support the airport for its efforts to acquire this funding from FAA or from the state, wherever that funding could come from. So if we need to make a change, or if we feel it's necessary to make a change in the wording, we should do it immediately and pass this resolution. Because I think timing is of the essence here.
Did you want to make an amendment, Teresa?
Sure, I'll motion to amend the resolution number 3589, a resolution of the City Council of Red Lodge, Montana, recognizing the value of it and stating its continued support for the Red Lodge Airport, with a change to the first statement under therefore, be it resolved that the council reaffirms its commitment to the airport, supports the efforts of the airport board in researching and pursuing independently from the city, funding sources, including grants and private donations.
Second.
Discussion on the amendment.
Sorry, you guys had discussion, were you guys taking out that whereas?
Yes, I'm
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
that was part of
Part
the
of that
amendment.
motion? Okay.
Yeah.
So make it one big motion.
A motion to, sorry, it's gonna take a while. See if I can repeat that. I motion to amend a resolution of the City Council of Red Lodge, Montana, recognizing the value and stating its continued support for the Red Lodge Airport by removing the fifth whereas. Do I need to read it all out?
No.
I second that.
And adding to the first therefore statement, the independently of the city of Red Lodge.
You seconded that?
I second it,
Okay.
absolutely.
Discussion on the amendment. Anything from the public? Do a roll.
Real quick.
On the amendment?
Oh.
You want that, right?
I think that settles it. I mean, I think that
Yeah.
gets what
Yeah.
the Red Lodge Airport Board wants,
Let's not
and then,
convolute this to.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that
Roll
gets at
call.
it.
Kelly?
Yes.
Keaton?
Yes.
Lyman?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Westwood?
Abstain?
Whistler?
Yes.
Okay, back to the original resolution as amended. Any
I
more
move to approve.
We've
It's already,
already
Okay.
done that, so, yeah. Any more discussion on?
No?
no,
No? Discussion from the public. Steve, you're on.
Steve Smith, 517 North Howard. But we want to thank you, council members, for time and effort considering this and the discussions that we've had with you. I think we're happy with this amendment and approval of the final approval of the resolution. We think the resolution is going to be helpful to us for our efforts to obtain funding going forward with both the FAA and the state of Montana.
Thank you, Steve. Any other public comment? Public comment? Public comment. Roll call.
Kelly.
Yes.
Eaton.
Yes.
Lyman.
Yes.
Ronnie.
Yes.
Westwood.
Abstain?
Whistler.
Yes.
Thank you. Dave?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like the record to show, it may have taken 4 years, but we got through a resolution with 0 input or comment from Dave. It is positive. Oh,
Great point. Thank you.
Ain't over yet,
Oh.
as they say, right?
Let's move on down the list to the investment grade audit. This is up for discussion. Courtney, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess at this point, I would like for this to be up for action early December. So I guess at this point, what you have is the final draft of what McKinstry and I put together. So yeah, I'm ready to hear if there's any concerns or questions moving forward.
Council, go ahead. Dave?
Can you clarify, are there any, other than just the 1 or 2 notations here that are basically punctuation corrections, what changes or significant changes are there from the previous version we reviewed, if any?
So most of the significant changes is that we confirmed $15,000 will be the cost of the investment grade audit. They also put in for the scope of work about how much it would cost for each. So if we did terminate the contract, we would essentially pay for the work that was done, and that gives us sort of an idea of how much to expect to pay McKinstry for. Those are really the big changes, including the resolution that was passed last meeting. We added that language saying that the city has approved resolution, I forget the number, for allocating funds for the investment grade audit.
So that was going to be my next question, because we already approved the resolution. So is the requested motion for action at the next meeting that we just authorize the mayor to sign the investment grade audit contract?
Yes, so it would be authorizing the mayor, and then that would officially approve McKinstry as our energy service provider for the audit.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other questions for Courtney? Yes, Teresa.
Yeah. I wondered if our city attorney, if Dennison had a chance to look this over, or would it wait till after discussion tonight?
Yeah. Oh, there he is.
I did. I had a chance to talk to Courtney about it multiple times. I have reviewed the contract also.
Any other discussion? Discussion from the public? Questions from the public? Thank you, Courtney.
Great
Thank
job,
you, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, Courtney.
This time we'll open it up for public comment. Once again, step up to the podium, state your name, whether you reside in the city or not, and you have 3 minutes.
Marcia Brown, 413 Berry Circle East in Red Lodge. I just would like to thank the city and the chamber and for partnering with the Community Foundation this fall to offer events to welcome our newcomers to Red Lodge. As I think you know, we've had 2. Bill's been our welcomer on behalf of the city of both of those, and Sherry's been the welcomer from the chamber. They've been very well attended. We've had a good chance to meet some of the people that are moving to Red Lodge and kind of acquaint them with the city and volunteer opportunities. And so we have one final one coming up December 4th and during Christmas stroll, 2 to 4 in the afternoon. This one, each of them has been held at a different place and business in Red Lodge. This one will be held at the Roosevelt Center, 2 to 4 o'clock on that Saturday, the 4th. And so I would just ask, as a co-sponsor of these events on the city, would you all please just let people know, and when you meet people that are been moved to Red Lodge in the last year or two, invite them to come. It's a lot of fun, it's pretty low key, and a great way for them to meet each other and for us to meet them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Any other public comments? Public comments?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi there. This is David Lenhair calling in. I live at 305 Northward, and I just wanted to make a couple of quick comments. Hopefully the hysteria and the sky is falling misinformation about an urban renewal district won't keep the council from addressing one of Red Lodge's biggest problems, which is, of course, affordable housing. On a slightly different topic, like many people in Red Lodge, I'm disappointed in the council's rush to approve the Bone Daddies and Snow Creek applications for next year, but fortunately, big changes are in the works, and hopefully we'll do it right next year. But appreciate what the council is doing. I know it's not easy in public service, so thank you.
Thank you, David. Public comments. Public comments. Public comments. I'm saying it's a done deal. All right. Thank you all.